Makkot Daf Zayin Amud Aleph, 29 lines down. Down, Mishnah says, Hanatel Emma Labanim, continuing our Mishnah, it said, if someone takes, so not our Mishnah, but the same vein about if you do something wrong, you're able to fix it with the positive commandment or not. So Mishnah says, regarding Shiluach Haken, sending away the mother bird and taking the eggs. Let's say a person takes the mother bird while she's with the eggs. You're not supposed to take it. Rabbi says you get Makkot and you don't have to send it away. But Hachamim are مش مشليها فإنه لك just send her away and therefore you won't get malkut because you fix it. Zekla, the rule is كل مسألة لو تعصي شيش بكل مسألة. Any sword that you can't do something that has a positive commandment seemingly to fix it, and حابين عليها you don't get malkut. Rabbi Yochanan says that when it says oh this is the rule, whenever there's a generalization like that, it teaches something specific. And nanu ela zot ve'od acheret. It's only this case and one other case that is similar that when you fix it you don't get malkut. Right? So what are those? What's this other case? Answered him, go find it. Go check it out. Do your own research. He found. The Tanabita says, a rapist, like we said earlier, a rapist then divorced his victim. He can remarry her. He doesn't get malkut. If the kohen, he gets malkut automatically because he can't marry her. That makes sense according to Jose we go according to fulfillment, and therefore you get malkut for violating it, whether or not you fix it, and that's why it fits over here. And the it's nullification. I understand a case of nullification because you can't fix it. Why? In a case of sending the bird, it could be possible. Let's say you killed the mother bird without sending it away. And the honest, the case of rape, how can you nullify it? If you kill her, that's the least of his problems of getting malkut. Now he's going to get a more severe punishment of killing her. So what would be nullification? The Gemara says, like we said, I touched upon it earlier, free previews over here. Let's say he was the shaliach to accept kiddushin for someone else. So someone else wanted to marry her while they were divorced, and he said, I'll be the shliach, I'll be the messenger to do that. The Gemara says, 1 second, that's not him making her asur. If she made him a shliach, she's the one who's marrying someone else, and therefore it's not his problem. He did not. She not make him a shliach. He can't be a shliach without her permission. The local is not a marriage. So how else can a victim be permanently made a sur by their rapist? It's a case where he made a neder, a public vow, and public vows cannot be revoked. That only makes sense according to me. Hold that public vows cannot be revoked because people don't know that he will revoke it, and then they think he'll be over. And the Mandamar Yeshlo after my opinion holds that you can revoke it. Then what's the problem? Making a vow will not make him permanently asur. The Gemara says he made it a vow based on public consensus, which means that he found out that she did something wrong, she was sinful, and therefore he vowed based off that thing that she did. So because that vow is now binding, the Amar the halacha is regular public vow can be annulled, but a vow based on public consensus, there's evidence, or obviously without witnesses, otherwise she'd be dead, or whatever is that she's sinful. That's a public vow, and therefore you can't marry her. That would be a case. Okay, but there's no other examples that you can fix a makut situation. Va'ika siman gezel mashkon b'fe'ah. Gezel Rahman Amar lo tigzol. Pasuk says don't rob someone. The Shiva Islan and the Mapas says you should return a stolen item, seemingly fixing it. And also a case of mashkon, a pledge. You take a collateral. Don't go into the house to get your pledge. You said the guy said he'll give you his watch. You do not have permission to walk into his house to take it. Also, if it's something like a blanket, you have to return it to him at nighttime when he needs it. Right? We're not punishing the guy for having collateral. He's down and out that he has to give a collateral. You return it to him when he needs it. That's a beautiful halakha from the Torah. Now you might think, if that's the case, what's the guy going to lose? Because the fact that mentally and psychologically, the fact that he has to give it away every day, even though he doesn't need it, it still bothers him. But the halakha is you can't take it. So now this could be a case where he fulfilled and fulfilled it, meaning he took this item, stolen item, or he took the collateral without permission. And also it could be a case of nullifying it. Let's say he destroyed it. The Gemara says, so therefore, how come this is not a concept of a case that you fix and therefore can avoid malkut? And in that list that we said only 2 cases, there should be a third one. The Gemara says, or 4. After the Gemara says, in the case of robbery or the collateral, once you have to pay back the owner for the stolen item or the collateral that he had destroyed, that's not nullification. And Lokem Shneim doesn't get Malkut in payment because he has to pay it back regardless. So yes, he's not returning the actual watch, he's paying the money instead of the watch. Therefore, that's not a nullification. One second, it's a case of a ger's property. Ger does not have relatives, and therefore, umet hager, if he dies, you cannot return it to anybody. So maybe you should get malkut if you stole something or destroyed the stolen item slash collateral. The Gemara said, "Hatam gavra bat. No, that's not a case of nullification. I'm able to pay it back. I should be able to pay it back. The ger on the ger's end, the fact that he died is not my fault, and therefore on that end, I don't have to pay it back. Not because I destroyed it. The guy died. There's nothing to do with me. Okay. But another explanation, another case, pe'ah. You should not destroy the corner of your field. You should leave it for the ani, right? Pe'ah. You shall separate pe'ah. The mishkach is not a case where it's fulfilled. You don't separate right away. But also can be a case of nullifying it. Let's say you ground the wheat kernels. Where it says the Tana Mishnah says mitzvah pe'ah la frish min hakama. The real mitzvah pe'ah is to separate it while it's from the field standing in the grain. Lo frish min hakama, if you didn't do it then, my frish min amarin, you can separate it after it's cut. Lo frish min if you didn't do it while it's cut, my frish min akiri achlo mariach, you should separate it from the pile of kernels as long as you didn't smooth it out. That's when you are chayav maaser. Merechov, if you smoothed it out, maaser v'tenlo, he has to give maaser, which is paying a higher percentage now because it's more quantity, and then he has to give it to the ani. So we see from here, seemingly the final point is after making maaser. So it's you smooth out the pile, making yourself chayav maaser, or you went past that rather, you went into flour. That's a case of nullification. How come this is not a third case of a positive commandment that could fix it with malkut? The Gemara says there's no such thing as too late by a case of pe'ah, because you can even separate it from your bread. Meaning, if you grind it to flour, no problem. Bake it into bread, no problem. Hand the ani a roll, you can still fix it. The Rishmael, you can also have another case of nullification. The achalitza, you ate the dough. Now what? What's that second case that we said there's a second case of fixing? This is the second case of pe'ah. Aval ones lo. Now we have to subtract one. Which one do we subtract? We subtract the case of the rapist. Because we said, what's the case that you can't go back? Is when he did a public vow when there's a sinful thing going on. The Dvar Harshu, that only applies for an optional item, meaning for an optional activity. The guy that makes a vow on bread, for example. Aval mitzvah for a mitzvah. Yani to remarry the divorcee because you have to. You can annul it. There's a certain rabbi and his teacher that would hit the children too hard. Rav made a vow not to teach anymore, not to teach kids anymore. Ravina annulled that decree and put him back. Because no other teacher was teaching as well as him. They said, listen, he hits kids too hard. Let him wear a bulletproof vest. So we see from here that regardless, that Ravina was able to annul a vow that was made on public consensus for the sake of mitzvah. What mitzvah was that? Letting the kids learn Torah correctly. Okay, next part of the Mishnah of V'ha'ochel nevelot utrevot shekatzim rasim. Makut also given to people who eat the animals that died without being slaughtered, or the meat of animals that got that were going to die at terefa, or bugs and creatures. Maravida. If someone ate a cabbage worm, right? So there's many different pesukim, that specific pesukim, 7+ pesukim that say that you can't have any type of creepy crawly creatures or sea creatures, etc. So they stack, these isurim stack. So if a person eats this type of cabbage worm, you get malkut for this pasuk. There's a guy who one time ate a cabbage worm. Ravida gave makut for that. If someone ate a putita, it's like a water bug. He gets 4 separate makuts because 2 main isurim against creeping crawlers and also 2 other pesukim regarding water creatures. An ant, you get 5. Because of the extra pasuk of this pasuk. If he ate a hornet, it's 6 makut. Because of the separate pasuk as well. All right, so just a side note, that's why we're very mahmir on checking our fruits and vegetables and our lettuces, is because there's so many isurim that get stacked so easily. One bite can be 6 separate isurim, 6 separate makuts. Pretty intense. Amar v'achai. Hamashet nekevav, someone who holds back his from urinating. Or even number 2. Although Mishum lo tishaketsu, famously, is over on the avera of don't make yourself gross out on your body. Someone drinks water or drink from a tube that's used for bloodletting, gross. Also, it's disgusting for the body and not healthy. And also, a person's also over for holding back his bathroom needs because it could make him impotent, God forbid. Someone smushed 9 ants together, which is and it's smaller than a kizayit worth of ants. And he brought a full ant and he put it into that pile of ants, and now he has a full kizayit amount, and he ate it. Lokesha, she gets 6. Hamesh mishum briya, 5 because of the separate 5 isurim eating an entire creature. And also another kizayit, another isur because he ate a kizayit of a nevela. Even if he had 2 smashed ants plus the live one. Even 1 plus 1. When is it 2 or 3? It's talking about a case where these ants are massive, the massive fire ants, for example, which equal a kazite, and the case of 10 is talking about many ones that you may have in the summer that drive you nuts. Next Mishnah, achal tevel u'maser rishon, someone ate tevel, produce that was not made maser, or ate maser rishon. Marav, achal tevel shel maser ani. Someone ate a tevel of maser ani, which is fruits, produce that was not separated for the ani, happens only every few years. Look, he gets makut. Kiman, who's according to? Yeah, that's not right. It says. Mishnah says. Tanya, Amar Yosef. You might think a person is not chayav for eating tevel except for tevel that was never separated at all. Maybe if you only separated turma for the Kohen, and you didn't do Maser Rishon for the Levi, or Maser Rishon will Maser Sheni. Let's say you did Maser Rishon, but you didn't do Maser Sheni, which has to be in Yerushalayim. But if Maser Ani, let's say you only did not separate Maser Ani. Minayin, how you know that's considered a tevel Yechayav? Maybe you might think only the first level or second level or third level. Tevel Mar lo tuchal le'echol b'sharecha. Well, another pasuk says v'achlu b'sharecha v'saveu. Teaches you Ma'alan Maser Ani, just like in the second pasuk mentions Maser Ani. Afkan Maser Ani is over here Maser Ani, but Maran Totohan, we see that the same isur of not eating it applies. You see from Rav that you get Maser Ani eating the tevel Maser Ani. It's the only thing you didn't separate. It's seemingly the most lenient. You're still chayav. Mar Yosef tonight Machloket Tanaim. Rabbi says a person does not need to designate Maser Ani of Demai. Demai is a safek from Amaris. Amaris, we're not sure if he separated it. Maybe they separate certain things, but not other things. So it's in a status of uncertain status. And therefore, you don't have to separate it, designate it rather. B'chamim say no. You should designate it, but you don't have to actually separate it physically. My lab back moving it. Maybe the machlok is based on this. The more survivor that tevel. Achamim hold is definitely you still have to separate it, and therefore you can't eat it as tevel. But more survivor the end of tevel. Rabbi says no, we're not worried. They probably did it for the ani, and therefore you don't have to separate it. Where it says that's the case of the machloket. At the mitfagi b'sfeko, why are you only talking about a case of demai, which is a safek? Lefego bevadai also make a machloket in a case of definite maaser ani, right? Meaning if you don't separate it, then you're chayav or not chayav for eating tevel. It must be that it's definitely considered tevel. Regarding demai, is separate. More savar Rabbi Elazar holds lo nechshtu amei haaretz al maaser ani l'shmai. Amei haaretz, people who are not learned, they for sure separate Maaser Ani, and therefore you don't have to be Machmir. Kieran the Mona who Afrish Mafresh, because since it's his money and it's given to any poor person, he'll do it. And rather, compared to other cases like Kohen Levi, they're not sure. Rabban Zari Hachmim hold, given the Tri Milta, since it's annoying for him to separate Maaser Ani, Lam Mafresh, you won't separate it. Okay, next part of the Mishnah. How much tevel a person must eat in order to be chayav makut? Machloket. Rabbi Shimon Hachamim machloket whether or not you have to eat a whole kernel or even less than a kazait. Is it a full piece like a beria, a full creation or not? Machloket is only applying to wheat kernel because Rabbi Shimon holds that since even if it's a kazait chayav because it's a separate beria, it's a separate item, the kernel. Hamim say no. Even a regular kazayit, because everything you eat a whole piece of bread, you definitely have some kernels in there. Regarding flour, divrei hakol kazayit, everybody would agree, even either B'Shimon would agree that it's flour, you need a full kazayit amount. Rabbi Yirmiyah Amar B'Shimon B'Nashkish, ki machloket bazukah ma'om bazuk. The same machloket by Rabbi Shimon Hachamim, by the wheat kernel, also applies by the flour. Now, Mishnah says, "Amar Mishimon Rabbi Shimon Hamim. Don't you agree with me about chelim milasha kosher chayav? If you eat a full ant, you're chayav." Amru lo mepnei sheik b'teh. They said, 1 second, that's considered like an ant. Amar then after hitar avik b'teh. So, continuing our Mishnah. Also, a single kernel is considered a creation, and therefore you're chayav. So, Rabbi Shimon simply says, "Hitayin, a whole wheat kernel chayav, kemach lo, and flour will be excluded against Rabbi Yirmiyah." The Gemara says, "L'drein kambalu." No, Rabbi Shimon could be talking according to their own opinion, meaning. I hold even flowery bechia. According to you that you say you need a kezayit. You should at least admit to me, you should agree with me on this hand, on this point, that a single kernel is a separate creation. Say no. When do we say a single creation is by an ant? Because it's a separate creature, a living creature. However, but a wheat kernel is not significant. It's not a living creature. It's a plant. And Tanaka we proof according to them that Rishon Omer, Rishon holds, Kol Shul the Makkot, any amount of Asur food Yachayav from Makkot, Lo Amru Kazayt Ela Inyan Korban, and Hachamim that said you need a Kazayt only regarding to being Chayav a Korban, but you don't get Makkot.